Hello again, everybody. Let me see if I can advance the slides. Okay. So I'm going to give us an update today about the botany and vegetation ecology team. I wanted to start by acknowledging all the folks on the team. I'm not going to introduce everybody one by one because that would take too much time. But if you're on the botany and vegetation ecology team and you're in the room, could you please stand up? Yeah, thank you. I see some queen waves in the room. I like that. I wanted to acknowledge Tom Baldwins and Brenda Wickman are both online today. I wanted to start by going through some of the core activities that our team does. One of those is database curation for rare plants and plant communities. I'm not going to go through this slide in detail because thanks to Amy Greenwell, we learned a lot about this today. I'll leave it by saying that for the last 2 years since the last partners meeting, we've done a very comprehensive review of all of the Colorado flora. We've added 111 plant taxa to the tracking list. And then we also added 140 plant taxa to the watch list, and a lot of those are in the new category we're calling poorly known. That's the graph on the bottom here. We're hoping to get more information about these species before we actually add them to the tracking list. Another core activity for our team is survey and inventory for rare plants and upland plant communities. Since the last partners meeting, our team members have either created or updated over 300 element occurrence records, and over 200 of those came directly from the statewide Natural Heritage Survey. So it's not an understatement to say that this influx of project has really leveled up what we can do as a program. I know we talked a lot about the survey this morning, but I wanted to acknowledge the work of Becca Harris and Grant Musgrave and Brenda Wickman on this project. These are all Becca's beautiful photos. But it's not just statewide that we're involved with. We've got some other great projects. A major funder for us is the Colorado Natural Areas Program. They have supported our CNHP staff, Brittany Morrow Nordentoff, who's their botanist ecologist on staff. They regularly update around 80 or more element occurrences a year. We also get funding from Section 6 through CPW and Fish and Wildlife, and funding from White River National Forest that allows us to do a lot of inventory work. Our team has also been doing a good bit of vegetation mapping, assessment, and inventory work. We have 3 projects that are headed up by Brenda Wickman. Those are the Amache National Historic Site, where they've done a good amount of herbarium work, building an herbarium for that location. Also the Plains Conservation Center project, where Brenda's done a novel protocol for the upland ecological integrity assessment for their project. Comanche and Cimarron National Grasslands work. And then we have had a couple of other additional projects, one for CPW Resource Stewardship out at the North Sandhills, where we're doing vegetation mapping and vegetation condition assessment. And then also Eagle Valley Land Trust, where we're doing a vegetation baseline assessment. And that's work that I did with Rob Monahan. Other team activities that we've been involved in for a long time now is rare plant monitoring. Most of our monitoring work focuses on federally listed and SWAP Tier 1 species. For many of our species now, we have over 10 years of monitoring data. This is work that's been supported heavily by the Natural Areas Program and now CPW, also Fish and Wildlife through Section 6. But we work with a whole host of partners, many who are in this room. So thank you to all of you who help us with this work. Our team has also been involved in some kind of technological side of things. Tom Baldwins heads up our work with electronic data collection apps. Right now he's working on one for the Forest Service for Region 3. We do species distribution modeling, which Amy pointed out earlier this morning, so thanks for that, Amy. And then we also had the pleasure of helping CPW with aspects of their latest SWAP revision, which is online. I've listed their website here. It's an amazing document. We were very fortunate to contribute to some of the rare plant profiles. I wanted to call out the Climate Change Vulnerability Index work that we did. This is work that Savannah Smith helped out greatly before she went to CPW, and also Jill Handwork. All of the SWAP Tier 1 and Tier 2 species, which there's about 160 of them, have a CCVI profile online, as well as lots of other information. A couple more activities our team's engaged in. One is seed collection for widespread native seeds for restoration purposes. We have a project with the U.S. Forest Service Region 2 Native Plant Material Program. This is a partnership with the Native Plant Society as well. Through the Native Plant Society, we've had over 50 volunteers join this effort. We've collected over 240 pounds of native seed in 21 provisional seed zones. And then we also have an arm of our team that does weed mapping and monitoring. One of our largest projects for this is with the U.S. Air Force Academy. We've been mapping out there for over 20 years. And I put the website for our reports page. All of our reports for the Air Force Academy project are online. They're full of amazing information about weed monitoring control strategies. So I encourage you to check it out. That's work that's headed up by Rob Monahan. And we've also done some weed mapping for the Forest Service as well, White River and Arapahoe Roosevelt. And then finally, the last activity I'll touch on is our outreach and education work. Amy also gave a nice example of our rare plant online profiles. We have 185 of those online right now. That's work that's been headed up by Susan Punjabi. We also have a new filter on our tracking list that allows you to filter by habitat as well as county and status. So I encourage you to check out our tracking list. We're still doing species assessment, most recently for U.S. Forest Service Region 2, and that's, again, work headed up by Susan. We also host the Rare Plant Symposium every fall. This year, I'm pleased to say we're going to have a joint task force to do this with Denver Botanic Gardens and Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I have a sign-up sheet at the back table. If you're interested in joining the mailing list to learn more about the Rare Plant Symposium, please leave your email and we'll get you added. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Does this work?
Takes a couple seconds.
Hello. I'm having trouble seeing. I'm too short for this setup. So I thought maybe I would try this.
Takes a minute to turn green.
Okay. Oh, you're so smart. Okay.
There it goes.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you. All right, Conservation Data Services team. We manage our PI, lots of projects at CNHP, but we also work with a lot of the other PIs on their projects as well. And then we look at everybody's, unique projects, and we try to collate it together and think about it programmatically and make sure that things get integrated and served on our website in a user-friendly way. We're pretty small, but we're mighty. I'm Amy. Michael, Yannick, and Bridget, if you're in here, could you stand? I don't know if Bridget's in here. Okay, maybe she's not right now. So we're database managers, we're IT, we're web coding, we're data management, data administration. Bridget's the newest member of our team. She's been working at CNHP for a couple of years, and she's really taken a lot of leadership on the data and biotics. So here's kind of a consortium of a lot of the major projects we've been working on. Yannick has done a lot of coding support for the USGS. So he's done a ton of front-end development on NABAT and Siren, which is early detection rapid response. He also developed from scratch the New Mexico Rare Arthropod resource. This was done for the New Mexico Heritage Program. And then we've developed the streams database from scratch as well. That is a partnership with Fish and Wildlife Service, and for the Upper Colorado River recovery programs. It's their main data system for monitoring pit tags and endangered fish activities in the Colorado Basin. And then we have a lot of heritage information online as well that we kind of manage the technical side of things for. So if you're looking for heritage data, the two main places to go would be either Codex, and that's our online mapping tool, our partnership with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So that'll bring our data together with Parks and Wildlife and other data sources to give you kind of a more comprehensive view of biodiversity in Colorado. For CNHP specific data, always best to start with our website. And from there, you can launch into a lot of helpful resources like our Colorado Rare Plant Guide that you all saw earlier. We have a Wetland Information Center, a BAT page. And then I think a lot of you are familiar with COMAP, which is our Managed and Protection Areas map. It has its own website right now. Our goal is to integrate it more into Codex so that you guys can go to one place for all the information that you need. We also do some of the biotics customizations. I mentioned this before. This is our online database that's developed by NatureServe that holds all of our rare species data and our element data, so the elements being the species, subspecies, and plant communities that are in Colorado. So we do the customization for that and a lot of the batch uploads and things like that need to get done. So here's just a screenshot of COMAP. If you've used this data set, you're probably used to seeing it displayed by land status. So that's the picture over on the left. But thanks to the outdoor strategy, we have now added protection levels. So this is a little bit similar to the GAP system that PAD US supports, but we customized it a little bit for Colorado. For example, we kind of have more private land conservation here than a lot of places in the country. Right now, these are two separate data sets on Codex, but we are working hard to integrate them into one. So the protection levels are, for the most part, based on the management statuses that are behind the scenes in the COMAP data set. And we hope to have the one integrated layer on Codex sometime this summer. And I just wanted to put a plug in for the return on investment work we did with Dr. Seidel and Ag Econ in 2024. We had actually done this a little bit earlier, so this was an update to that, where we identified the return on investment for private lands conservation in Colorado. And part of the motivation for this was to see what benefits the state's receiving from the foregone tax revenue from the tax credit program. So we've been really lucky through some of the state legislature creating a relationship with the Department of Conservation that manages the tax credit program. So we have a really good data sharing relationship with them right now, which made helps keep COMAP up to date, but also made this type of work possible. So you can see that there's a really high benefit to private lands conservation in terms of ecosystem services. And this is also a report that is on Codex, so you can plug in any parcel if you're interested in potentially looking at areas you want to protect. And you can see the ecosystem services and the economic range of what those are worth. And then if you have the financial side of things, or what your investment can be, you can generate a return on investment. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael to give you a quick update on Codex and the outdoor strategy.
Thanks, Amy. My clicker. Okay, well, yeah, I'm co-team leader on conservation data services with Amy, and kind of wanted to give a quick update on our Codex partnership. And really just, I think all of you know this, but Codex would not be the amazing resource it is without all of the partners that contribute data, with Colorado Parks and Wildlife being front and center, but Bird Conservancy of the Rockies, Colorado State Forest Service, several entities in this room have provided data. As Dave said, we have over 30 organizations, but it also wouldn't happen with the generous and really thought leader support that we've gotten from so many of the other NGOs in the room, like Keep It Colorado, came in early and really saw the value that that was bringing to Colorado. And we've also received corporate support from Chevron. And we're one of the only state databases with a reporting system like this that is free for all commercial use. And it's our goal, because data wants to be free, and we really feel like getting data in early in the process and easily is going to lead to better outcomes for everyone in Colorado. So how has Codex taken off? It's actually exceeded our expectations on every level. Prior to launching to now, it's many orders of magnitude more data requests that we're getting, data that's going out. We've had 150,000 page views on Codex just since it launched in October of 2021. Just in this last year, that's 56,000 views. We have over 14,000 users, and of those, 3,375 of them, representing over 700 organizations, have signed up for full-on Codex membership. And so we have like a 23% conversion rate. So people obviously really needed this. I see I'm getting dinged at, so I think we've run out of time, so I'm gonna swing through this. But for important updates on Codex, we've added several new layers, like the Colorado's outdoors strategy, the Habitat and Connectivity project, and the new State Wildlife Action Plan is available on there, among many other things. And we have some new exciting features coming in the future that allow mobile data use and new security enhancements when we launch on a new platform, either later this year or maybe into next year when NatureServe is ready for that. And Dan already talked about Colorado's outdoor strategy, so I can spend a little less time. Here's where we fit in on the consulting team. We kind of led the conservation tasks and collecting a lot of the data and assisting with a lot of the technical side of it, and was really a perfect home. And this was dream field for us, just like working on Colorado's statewide natural heritage survey. This is what we have always wanted to do as an organization. The 3 goals we already went over, and so specifically, we built a legacy of tools for climate resilient conservation, restoration, exceptional sustainable outdoor recreation, and coordinated planning and funding hosted on Codex at CNHP. With that, we created this statewide conservation summary. So we took all of these different data layers from CPW, CNHP, and we've created one surface that shows kind of as a heat map the most biodiversity important areas. We integrated protection status in a co-map, as Amy showed you, and we brought several partner tools onto Codex, such as the Nature Conservancy's Resilient and Connected Landscape tool. The Resource Hub, if you all were wanting to go and look at the tribal framework, the QR code on the left will take you to where you can get that tribal framework we heard about earlier today, as well as many other resources, including the dashboard that's featured up right here for outdoor strategy. And so feel free to grab those. And lastly, we've also worked really closely with the private land folks in the room. And this story map is really a way to use Codex to tell your story as an organization, to use that return on investment tool to pull all the different state wildlife action plan, tier 1, tier 2 species and other important species. So you can tell, what are we protecting as an organization? So scanning this QR code will give you a great story of how Colorado Cattlemen's Agricultural Land Trust has been able to show their annual economic impact is well over $1 billion in conserved ecosystem services, and many, many SWAP and other protected species are being protected on their lands and well conserved. So with that, thank you, and we're ready for our next speaker, which will be Namra.
All right, greetings, Earthlings. I am going to just real quickly give you guys a soundbite on what the rest of our team has been doing, and then I'm going to turn it over to our, thank you, Amy, to my newest guy here. Okay, so we have had, since our last partners meeting, the profound privilege of working with our BFFs over at Parks and Wildlife on a number of super important things, the State Wildlife Action Plan, which you all have heard about and will hear about some more in our state panel. The statewide Habitat Conservation and Connectivity Plan, Bort Edwards did a lot of phenomenal work on that. And the beaver strategy is now done, which you also will hear about here shortly. And Anna Davidson in our office at our last partners meeting, you heard about her Homes on the Range work, which is a big multi-partner landowner collaboration regarding how to prioritize prairie conservation, prairie dogs in a climate change environment. So they have moved into implementation of all of the planning efforts that went into that. But what we are going to spend our team update time doing today is introducing you to Vinamra Mather, who is representing the newest big deal for CNHP, which is the Biodiversity Indicators Program. He's working with Ellie Linden, who presented earlier on our state survey dashboard. So, Vin, do your thing.
Thank you. So just quickly, I know we are short on time, but yeah, the Biodiversity Indicators Program, what I'm presenting is a global program that helps with the global Kunming. Oh, I can just press this. Okay, here we go. Perfect. So yeah, we are a program that got absorbed from NatureServe, and what we thought was it went to its strongest cousin. And what we do is we track and report on conservation targets globally, as well as implement the global biodiversity framework. So for 1 second, I want to take you all out of Colorado. All of our projects are sort of mostly in the ASEAN nations, as well as Namibia, South Korea, the Bahamas, and then Uganda. And I'll take this opportunity to announce some of our biggest wins as of this year, which is we just got endorsed as a non-UN entity to be a facilitator for the NBSAP strategies globally, which what it does is it opens up to 103 countries to help build and implement their NBSAPs as a non-state actor. So Warner College, through the Biodiversity Indicators Program, is helping implement these strategic action plans for 2030. And the next big announcement I'll make today is that we also are signing a 5-year MOU with the International Big Cat Alliance. So these are 7 of the big cats of the world, which cover about 95 range countries, helping them with corridor connectivity, biodiversity, habitat modeling, as well as reporting to the Target 3 indicator 30 by 30. And what that looks like is more of these dashboards. So these dashboards help these countries report on management effectiveness of protected areas, as well as carnivore coexistence and human-wildlife conflict. This is just a snapshot of one of the dashboards showing tiger conservation landscape, along with definitions of what these conserved area means. And then we are basically trying to implement where these corridors exist globally for all of these 7 big cat species. So the Darien State in Panama, the Andes, we're working in Jaguar, and we have really strong collaboration here at CSU through the Africa Center and through Warner College to help us achieve this. Another project that we worked on, and this is in the Bahamas. So this is just a protected area deep dive as the spatial biodiversity information systems for the Bahamas. And it covers sort of all of the national parks in the Bahamas. For this, we were able to create a GBIF tool. We rely very heavily on GBIF data. And then we in-house created a tool that helps us clean GBIF data to a point that we can be confident to present it to countries to sort of show bird occurrences and the IUCN threat status. Last but not the least is our, sorry, I skipped that one, but if we can go back, but the multilateral agreement tracking platform for Namibia. And this is, again, the KMGBF targets down at the bottom. And this tracker and dashboard sort of implemented 3 of the UN missions, so UNCCD, UNCBD, and UNFCCC. So all 3 of those conventions, and how do you report on them? As you can understand, it's very difficult to sort of navigate global policies and indicators and reporting, and we're trying to just implement and take some of that burden off of these countries to help them come up with their data. So what CNHP does on a Colorado level is just think of it as a global level with curating, as long as not curating, but coming up with the decision planning and conservation targets for countries. And these are just some of the big photos. I want to give a big shout out to the Centroid, Geospatial Centroid in the back, sort of helped us make this possible, and they give us a lot of support in terms of creating these dashboards, fixing some of the errors that we have, and then just being really strong partners. And I also want to give a shout out to Alonso Aguirre, who used to be the Dean of Warner, but then has taken a new role as the Presidential Advisor, who's helping us navigate these MOUs and these big international agreements. So yeah, that would be all, and I can pass it on to the next team. Thank you.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Joanna Lemley. It's so great to see all of you guys here today. Okay, here's this. I just hit the green? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I have the honor of leading our talented and dedicated staff of wetland and aquatic ecologists here at CNHP on a whole range of efforts. So here are all the folks on my team. As you can imagine, this is too big. We've got about 16 full-time people right now, and not going to introduce them all, but if you're on the wetland team, could you stand up if you're in the room? I think a bunch of you are sitting at the same table, so I encourage you guys to split up during the break and go mingle. We also have a number of staff members who work remotely, including 4 staff members who live in Utah, and primarily work on BLM tasks. So as I go through these slides, I've included some photos in each slide of the people who are working on different projects, so you can start to associate some of these faces with the efforts that are underway. But before I get into the projects, I just wanted to provide a little context for why wetlands are so important today. If you've heard me or many other people who talk about wetlands in the state of Colorado before, you've probably heard this statistic that the wetlands represent less than 2% of Colorado, but they host a disproportionate amount of biodiversity. We know that is true. And I don't have to tell anybody in this room that we are really in a critical moment right now. Dave presented some statistics on how this is the warmest and the driest winter on record. That is real. So wetlands are the features on our landscape that hold that precious water. They deliver it slowly into the streams. They provide habitat in a dry landscape. I was down in the San Luis Valley just a couple weeks ago, and everything was so dry that I had to get in the car and drive across the valley to Russell's State Wildlife Area and see that water and see those birds. So our wetlands are critical in the landscape right now. Despite how critical they are, there are a lot of changes happening at the federal level around wetland regulation and protection. As you may know, there was a Supreme Court decision in 2023 that rolled back or really altered the number of wetland acres and streams protected by the Army Corps of Engineers and US EPA under the Clean Water Act. So with these two things happening, the other thing I want to highlight is how important Colorado really has stepped up. Colorado has taken some really important steps in protecting our wetland resources here in the state. So there's been some significant Colorado legislation and policy over the last few years. There's a State Bill 23270, the Stream Restoration Bill, helps facilitate stream restoration in our state. HB 1375 created a new dredge and fill regulatory program for the state to fill in the gap behind the feds, and the beaver conservation and management strategy that Brian will talk about later this afternoon. So some very important bright lights here in Colorado.
But just wanted to emphasize that it's more important than ever to keep wetlands at the forefront of conservation. So now I just have a few slides, kind of grouped some of our project work into a few slides. On each of these slides in the corner, I mentioned whether it's a statewide focus, whether it's a geographic focus, or focus on a particular wetland types. First, we've heard a lot about the statewide natural heritage survey today. Through this project, we are documenting rare and significant wetlands across the state. We are refining the classification of Colorado's wetlands at multiple levels and clarifying which species and communities are the most rare and worthy of conservation. Clark, Barrett, and Bodie are involved in this project, so find them if you want to talk about how wetlands interact in the SNHS project. Another statewide effort I wanted to mention is statewide wetland assessment data. So for 20 years, I've been working on monitoring and assessing wetlands across the state of Colorado. Through those years, every 5 years, we participate in EPA's National Wetland Condition Assessment. 2026 is one of our NWCA years. We will be sampling about 16 locations across the state. Which is only a few sites compared to what we did in 2021, where we sampled 50 sites across the state in order to produce statewide estimates of wetland condition, shown here in terms of vegetation condition. We found that wetland condition was fair, good or fair in over half the sites we sampled, but that condition really did vary by elevation and land use, and that all wetlands we sampled experienced some level of alteration. We also are curating a database of plots that includes soils, vegetation, in some cases water chemistry. So that's a database that we launched online in 2020, and over the last year, we have been adding a ton of new data into that database. So we've added about 1,000 new records to bring that up to about 4,000 new records that will be available sometime this summer online. And there's a QR code there to access the plots database as it is right now. Lauren and Bodie are working on those projects. And then another important project at the statewide level is we are involved in science to support wetland regulation and planning. So one thing we are doing through EPA funding is we're actually creating a model of which wetlands and streams are likely to be under federal versus state jurisdiction. We're creating multiple scenarios based on the interpretation of regulatory language coming out from the Army Corps. And of note, in our most federally restrictive scenarios, the state could end up being responsible for regulating a large share of wetlands. So that's really underscoring how important it is that Colorado developed a regulatory program over the last year or so. We're also doing some soil carbon sampling through that project, and we're seeking funding right now to work on wetland assessment methods to support the regulatory program. Sarah Smith on our team is working with me on those efforts. We are working in terms of a geographic focus. We've done a pair of projects looking at resilient wetlands in the Front Range and Plains. These are really important wetlands that are sometimes overlooked for those more beautiful mountain wetlands. Lori Gilligan, who formerly on CNHP staff, really led this work. She recently finished the report on groundwater-dependent ecosystems on the plains, and that work included a map of priority GDE complexes across the Front Range and Plains, field surveys in over 50 sites, vegetation, soils, amphibians, macroinverts. It's a really rich data set and report that's on our website now. And then we're in the middle of a project looking specifically at Front Range wetlands, creating new NWI National Wetland Inventory, mapping in the Front Range where there's been so much change in development, and then field surveys in a number of sites. Hannah Moore and Luke Nags have picked up that work from Lori Gilligan and are doing a beautiful job. In terms of wetland type focus, we're working on a few different projects. We're mapping fens, really anywhere that anybody will contract us to map fens. We love fens, but primarily with support from the Forest Service. We've mapped fens on the White River National Forest, the GMUG, the Medbo, and Route is our next forest to map. We're also continuing our work modeling beaver ponds across the state, and we're looking to do more work on playas. We've started to compile a statewide playa map, and we're looking for more funding to work on playas. Okay, and then my last slide, I promise, I got the exit stage left from Rob, is last but not least at all is our deep involvement with the BLM's Assessment, Inventory, and Monitoring Program. About half of our staff work on this either here in Colorado or across the West. We are the lead science partner for the National Riparian and Wetland AIM program, and we also partner with data collection for both the wetlands and our stream monitoring programs in multiple states across the West. So we are busy. And with that, I thank you. And I wish I'd put a QR code up here for the Colorado Wetland Information Center, which is our website that holds a lot of our wetland data. So thank you so much.
I got it. So hi, I'm Jeremy Seamers. I'm the zoology team leader, and I will also have my zoology folks stand up as well if you're in the room. So we can move to the next slide. Here's the zoology team, and the ones that are in the room are standing. So come find them and say hi. Talk to them about their adventures. We have been able to expand some of our capacity in terms of people we are able to hire and disciplines we're able to cover with the statewide project, and that's probably been mostly identifiable in the invertebrate zoology component of our team. A lot of our focus since bringing on some entomologists, so both Tristan Kubik and Nathan Komai, is invertebrate databasing and specimen preparation that we've been able to scrape all of the various databases and museum specimen localities of these rare invertebrates across the state and get them into our database and compile them for use. In addition to that, we have also been involved with the tracking review and looking at which of these inverts should we be paying attention to. Trying to figure that out for these groups can be rather difficult, but that is time we're spending to determine which ones truly are rare or which ones just have not been surveyed very much. This was done in incorporation with the SWAP review that was done as well, and so some of this work was done as part of that. So we did have over 100 additions to our tracking lists, and then we've had thousands of new mapping locations that have been added since we've started some of this work in the last year or two. With Nathan Komai's expertise, we've been able to be involved with a project that is somewhat related to the statewide survey too, but it's a bird and pollinator comparison that the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies has been doing as a partnership with them. So looking at all of these different bees and pollinators that are on the eastern plains. Also, one of our longer-term projects that we've had since 2002, it's one of our longer-term monitoring projects, is the Pawnee Montane skipper. And this has added a great deal of knowledge on habitat requirements for skipper distribution and informing conservation actions on the national forest lands, including forest thinning operations associated with fire mitigation within the butterfly's distribution. We also have a small North Sandhills inventory work with CPW, so some of the invertebrate work that's been going on there, and as well as a project that will be coming up here in the next year on the Caribou Ranch with the Boulder Open Space and Mountain Parks. I did want to highlight a few more of our projects that we are involved with. I'm not including anything about the statewide survey on this one. We've heard a lot about that one today, but these are projects that we're doing in addition to the statewide natural heritage survey. One of our other longer running projects for monitoring is the Prevost Meadow Jumping Mouse on the U.S. Air Force Academy. And this is a project that's been run by Rob Shore since its inception many years ago. And we also have Terataka Funabashi, who's a former Sigley intern work study employee that we've had for many years, and he's also a graduate student now in the Fish and Wildlife and Conservation Biology department, doing his master's degree and comparing camera trapping with a live trapping of Preble's meadow jumping mouse on the Air Force Academy. And it's not just a camera trap that's put out in the middle of nowhere. They're attached to these 5-gallon buckets that are able to passively monitor Preble's meadow jumping mouse, and it's showing some success as a possible way to inventory for these species. Another long-term monitoring project that we've had is the boreal toad project that has been going on with Colorado Parks and Wildlife since 1999. And this is an ongoing partnership with CPW to monitor breeding sites primarily in Chaffee County, and documenting some of the effects of chytrid fungus as it's making its way through the state and through our amphibian populations. These data are used by the boreal toad conservation team to direct management actions for the recovery of this state endangered species. And then John Soville is also involved in a species monitoring project that's more of a desktop exercise for looking at, I'm not sure what the Forest Service is calling them now. It's not sensitive species. It's some sort of other list name of species, but looking at these different species across the White River and Route and other National Forest units. And then we are also involved in a significant amount of bat work across the state, as well as into Wyoming. A lot of these projects are prompted by white nose syndrome, a disease that has come across from the eastern United States into Colorado and has made its way into Colorado. So we are doing a fair amount of work in partnership with many different agencies, but especially CPW, in looking at monitoring known maternity sites, as well as doing surveillance for the fungus that is causing this decline in these species. So we do have long-term monitoring sites that we've had in the west near Steamboat, as well as Gateway Natural Area up the Puna Canyon, and then also a significant number of sites in Wyoming that we're also helping to do some of the mark recapture work there while monitoring these maternity sites. We're also involved in some preliminary work with vaccine trials with the USGS, and these are locations within Steamboat, Wyoming, and then this coming year we'll be in Rocky Mountain National Park doing this as well. It's a vaccine that's developed to help see if mostly little brown bats is what we're looking at right now, but also some other species to see if we can see if they can survive better once they do contract this white nose syndrome. We're also working at Fort Carson Army Base, as well as Pinyon Canyon Maneuver Site, to do some more intensive surveys and roost searching for different species on their properties. Much of this work has been prompted by the potential listing of the tricolored bat, which has brought attention to this species and looking for where these species might occur. So that work is occurred last year and will also be occurring this year. And we're also going to be on the Arapahoe Roosevelt National Forest in Pawnee National Grasslands doing similar surveys for this species as well as other bat species. And then an upcoming on the Pike San Isabel National Forest as well. And then we're also, with partnership with the USGS and Colorado Parks and Wildlife, involved with a Colorado component of the North American Bat Monitoring Project, where we are collecting data, and other biologists across the state from different agencies are collecting data, mostly acoustic data for bats, and analyzing those acoustic calls and uploading those into the USGS database for NA bat. And I think that was my last slide. So thank you. That was zoology.
Thank you, CNHP team leaders, for the updates.